Pine Hollow had always been a quiet town, tucked away in the hills, surrounded by dense forests and rolling mist. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where secrets were rare, and life unfolded in a predictable rhythm. But for the last 2 months, something had changed. It started with one missing person. Mary Thompson, a school teacher, vanished without a trace. At first, it was shrugged off as a disappearance. Maybe she'd left for a new life, or perhaps it was some sort of accident. But then, one by one, the wives of Pine Hollow began to disappear. Annabelle, the baker's wife Clara, the doctor's wife Elizabeth, who ran the local store. They were all gone, without a single clue, without a sound. The husbands were frantic, each of them trying to make sense of what was happening. The town sheriff, Henry Calloway, launched investigation after investigation, but nothing came up. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, no trace of any kind. It was as if they had simply vanished into thin air. The only common thread? All the missing women were married. As the weeks passed, the town grew more and more unsettled. People began to whisper about the disappearances, some of them speculating that there was something sinister behind it, but no one dared to voice their thoughts too loudly. One evening, after yet another fruitless search, Sheriff Calloway sat alone in his office, running over the same evidence in his head. He had interviewed every husband, every neighbor, every friend, but still, there was nothing. It was as if the women had just disappeared from existence. His mind wandered, and then it hit him. There was one person he hadn't questioned. The one person who seemed too calm in the face of so much chaos. Arthur Greene. Greene was new to town, having moved there just before the first disappearance. He was a quiet man, a writer, who lived on the outskirts of town. And strangely, he was never seen with his wife, Margaret. The few times the two had been seen together, there was an odd tension, a coldness between them that no one could explain. Sheriff Calloway decided to pay Arthur a visit. He drove down the winding road that led to Greene's secluded house, the headlights of his car cutting through the thick fog that seemed to always cling to the land. As he arrived at the house, he noticed something strange. There were no lights on, no signs of life at all. It was eerily quiet. The door creaked open with a single push, as if it had been waiting for him. Inside, the house was dark, with only the faint glow of moonlight streaming through the windows. There was an odd, pungent smell in the air, something that reminded Calloway of old paper and something more, something wrong. He made his way through the hallway and into the living room. The air was thick with dust, but there, in the corner of the room, was a large bookshelf. Calloway walked toward it, drawn to it inexplicably. He reached out and pulled the nearest book from the shelf. It fell open in his hands, but it wasn't a regular book. It was a journal, its pages filled with strange, cryptic writing, almost as if written in a hurry. Some of the entries were dated, others were not, but one thing was clear. The writing was about the women of Pine Hollow. The pages told a chilling tale. Arthur Greene had been a part of a long-forgotten ritual, one that promised to keep his wife forever young, forever his. The ritual, however, required a sacrifice, a soul, and the women of Pine Hollow were chosen. He had taken them one by one, using their love for their husbands to bind them to him. Each woman, it seemed, had been brought to this house, never to return. Their lives were the price to ensure that his own life, his own marriage, remained undisturbed. As Calloway read, he felt the hair on the back of his neck rise. The last entry was dated just a few days ago. The final one will be soon. Once she is mine, I will be free from this curse. Margaret will be mine again, and I will live forever. Before Calloway could comprehend the gravity of what he was reading, he heard a noise behind him, the creaking of footsteps. Slowly, he turned, and there, standing in the doorway, was Arthur Greene. But his eyes, they were not the eyes of the man Calloway had seen around town. They were empty, hollow, as though all warmth and life had been drained from them. "You shouldn't have come here, Sheriff," Greene said, his voice cold and detached. Calloway's hand instinctively reached for his gun, but it was too late. Greene stepped forward, and with each step the air grew heavier, suffocating, as if the very house itself was alive, aware and hungry. A sudden realization hit Calloway. He wasn't just facing a man. He was facing something ancient, something evil. Greene had never been human. He was something else. Something that had been hiding in plain sight, feeding off the love and lives of those around him. With one final step, Greene lunged at the sheriff, his hand gripping Calloway's throat with an unnatural strength. In his last moments, Calloway's eyes widened as he saw, just behind Greene, a pale, lifeless figure. Margaret. She stood silently, watching her husband's work unfold. The next morning, the entire town of Pine Hollow woke to the news. Sheriff Calloway was missing, and the women, they were gone, as if they had never existed. The only trace left behind was the haunting journal, found lying open on the floor, the last entry still visible. Once she is mine, I will live forever. Pine Hollow was never the same. The men who had once searched for their wives, desperate and broken, now went about their lives as if nothing had changed. The wives had never truly existed, and neither did the search for them. The town had fallen under an unspoken spell, and life in Pine Hollow went on, forever changed, forever dark. And in the shadows of the house on the hill, Arthur Greene smiled, his marriage complete once again.